In the midst of the Israel-Hamas conflict that unfolded in October 2023, a diverse range of voices emerged to offer their perspectives on the situation. Prominent figures from various backgrounds, including journalists, intelligence experts, commentators, and psychologists, shared their insights on the geopolitical, military, and humanitarian dimensions of the conflict. Here, we present the nuanced viewpoints of individuals such as Piers Morgan, Tracy Walder, retired Colonel Tony Shaffer, Ben Shapiro, Patrick Bet-David, Gerald Celente, and Professor Sam Vaknin, each bringing their unique expertise and perspectives to the discourse. Piers Morgan, a British journalist and television personality, strongly condemned Hamas for their coordinated attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. He labeled it a barbaric act of terrorism, resulting in the tragic loss of innocent lives. He emphasized Israel's justified response in defending itself against such an attack. Morgan criticized the international community for what he perceived as a lack of sufficient action to halt the violence and provide support to Israel. He expressed his view that this stance was hypocritical and cowardly in the face of Hamas and Iran. He defended Israel's right to protect its citizens from Hamas rocket attacks and tunnel incursions. He characterized Israel as a democratically facing a genuine existential threat from its adversaries. Morgan challenged some critics of Israel, including comedian Bassem Youssef, for what he deemed as the use of inflammatory language and generalizations about the West and Israel. He emphasized the importance of recognizing the diversity within these populations. Additionally, Morgan acknowledged the suffering of the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza. He attributed their plight to what he described as Hamas oppressive governance and corruption. He advocated for a peaceful solution and a better life for the Palestinian population. Morgan expressed his support for a two-state solution as the means to bring about a lasting peace, granting both Israelis and Palestinians their respective sovereign states. Tracy Walder, a former CIA officer and FBI special agent, criticized Israeli intelligence for what she deemed a significant failure in detecting and preventing the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023. She characterized it as a massive intelligence failure, resulting in tragic civilian casualties and a declaration of war by Israel. She attributed this intelligence failure to various factors, including political instability in Israel after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's election, overconfidence within Israeli security forces, underestimation of Hamas capabilities, and potential external support for Hamas. Walder proposed potential enhancements to Israeli intelligence, such as increased cooperation among different agencies, bolstering human and technical sources of information, conducting more rigorous threat assessments, and developing more effective countermeasures and contingency plans. She expressed frustration over the Mar-a-Lago document leak, considering it a betrayal of the CIA's mission and a threat to the lives of agents and allies in the Middle East. Walder also empathized with the Palestinian population, particularly those in Gaza, who she believed were suffering under Hamas rule. She expressed hope for a peaceful resolution and the establishment of sovereign states for both Israelis and Palestinians. Professor Sam Vaknin, a Macedonian Israeli psychologist, author, and expert on narcissism, offered a psychological analysis of the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. He characterized it as a suicidal and irrational act driven by Hamas' narcissistic personality disorder and a desire to provoke a narcissistic injury to Israel, and compared the Hamas attack to the September 11 attacks on the U.S., attributing both to a death wish and a martyrdom complex, challenging the perceived dominance of the West. He criticized the international community for what he perceived as a lack of support for Israel and insufficient action against Hamas. He considered this stance as betraying democratic and human rights values. Vaknin defended Israel's right to protect itself against Hamas rockets and tunnels, emphasizing Israel as a democratically facing an existential threat. He expressed skepticism about the feasibility of a two-state solution, citing challenges including Israeli settlement expansion, Palestinian territory fragmentation, the rise of militant groups, and a lack of trust and political will among leaders and populations on both sides. Vaknin advocated for a regional approach involving cooperation from moderate Arab states like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. He believed they shared a common interest in containing Iran and its proxies, while fostering stability and prosperity in the Middle East. Retired Colonel Tony Shaffer. Retired Colonel Tony Shaffer, a former U.S. Army intelligence officer and senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, accused Iran of orchestrating the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023. He asserted that it was a coordinated operation aimed at diverting attention from Iran's nuclear ambitions and testing Israel's defenses. Shaffer commended Israel's response, considering it a necessary and proportionate action that demonstrated Israel's military prowess and deterrence capabilities. He criticized the Biden administration for what he saw as inadequate support for Israel and a failure to confront Iran. He characterized this as weak and indecisive leadership that emboldened Israel's adversaries and put its allies at risk. Shaffer called for a more active U.S. role in the region, advocating for increased military and diplomatic assistance to Israel, heightened sanctions and pressure on Iran, and rallying international condemnation and isolation of Hamas. He expressed skepticism about the feasibility of achieving peace in the Middle East as long as Hamas remained in power in Gaza and refused to recognize Israel's right to exist. Ben Shapiro, a conservative commentator and author, staunchly supported Israel's right to self-defense against Hamas rocket attacks and tunnel incursions. He characterized Israel as a democratically facing an existential threat. He held Hamas responsible for the coordinated attack on Israel, denouncing it as a barbaric act of terrorism resulting in the loss of innocent lives and justifying Israel's response. Shapiro criticized the international community for what he viewed as insufficient efforts to halt the violence and provide support to Israel. He accused them of hypocrisy and cowardice in the face of Hamas and Iran. He expressed reservations about the viability of a two-state solution, citing challenges such as Israeli settlement expansion, Palestinian territory fragmentation, the influence of militant groups like Hamas, and a lack of trust and political will on both sides. Shapiro advocated for a regional approach involving cooperation from moderate Arab states like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. He believed they shared a common interest in containing Iran and its proxies, while fostering stability and prosperity in the Middle East. Patrick Bet-David, an Iranian-American entrepreneur, author, and media personality, voiced strong support for Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas attacks. He characterized Israel as a democratically facing an existential threat. He placed blame on Hamas for the coordinated attack on October 7, 2023, considering it a barbaric act of terrorism leading to the loss of innocent lives and justifying Israel's response. Bet-David criticized the international community for what he perceived as insufficient efforts to halt the violence and provide support to Israel. He accused them of hypocrisy and cowardice in the face of Hamas and Iran. He expressed reservations about the viability of a two-state solution, citing challenges such as Israeli settlement expansion, Palestinian territory fragmentation, the influence of militant groups like Hamas, and a lack of trust and political will on both sides. Bet-David advocated for a regional approach involving cooperation from moderate Arab states like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. He believed they shared a common interest in containing Iran and its proxies, while fostering stability and prosperity in the Middle East. Gerald Celente, an American trend forecaster, renowned for his accurate predictions regarding global events such as the 2008 financial crisis, the Arab Spring, and the COVID-19 pandemic, holds distinct views on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Celente believes that Israel's policies and actions towards the Palestinians amount to an apartheid state. He asserts that these actions, which include occupying Palestinian territories, constructing illegal settlements, demolishing homes, causing civilian casualties, and imposing a blockade on Gaza, contravene international law and human rights principles. Celente does not shy away from criticizing the United States for what he perceives as complicity in Israel's actions. He accuses the U.S. government of providing military and diplomatic support to Israel, using its veto power to thwart UN resolutions, and stifling criticism of Israel's policies. Celente warns that the Israel-Palestine conflict is not just a humanitarian crisis, but also a substantial geopolitical risk. He contends that it has the potential to escalate into a broader regional or global conflict involving countries such as Iran, Syria, Russia, China, and other global powers. In seeking a resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict, Celente advocates for a peaceful and just outcome. He supports recognizing the Palestinian right to self-determination, ending the occupation, dismantling the settlements, addressing the issue of Palestinian refugees, and establishing a democratic and secular state that accommodates all individuals in historic Palestine. design. Gerald Celente frequently expresses these views through various channels, including his writings in the Trends Journal, interviews, podcasts, and social media posts. He also lends his support to the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions (BDS) movement, viewing it as a nonviolent means of pressuring Israel to adhere to international law and uphold human rights. In conclusion, the Israel-Hamas conflict of October 2023 elicited a multitude of viewpoints from individuals across various fields, shedding light on the intricate facets of the situation. While figures like Piers Morgan, Tracy Walder, retired Colonel Tony Shaffer, Ben Shapiro, Patrick Bet-David, Gerald Celente, and Professor Sam Vaknin held differing perspectives, their contributions added depth to the discourse surrounding this complex issue. We hope that this compilation has provided you with a more comprehensive understanding of the diverse viewpoints and expertise that emerged during this significant event. Thank you for watching and for engaging with these crucial discussions. Your continued interest and curiosity are pivotal in fostering understanding and dialogue on such intricate matters.